Picture this. It's 4 in the morning in medieval Europe, and while most people are still dreaming about their next meal, a group of monks is already creating what would become one of history's most perfect foods. No fancy machinery, no temperature gauges, just milk, salt, and centuries of quiet wisdom passed down through calloused hands. Today we're stepping into an Abbey dairy from the year 1200, where every wheel of cheese tells a story of patience, precision, and a way of life that turns simple ingredients into liquid gold. You're about to discover how these medieval monks developed cheese-making techniques so brilliant that we still use them today. From the exact moment when milk transforms into something magical, to the secret signs that separate amateur attempts from monastery masterpieces. But here's what gets really interesting. These weren't just monks making cheese for dinner. They were running what might have been Europe's most sophisticated food production operation, complete with quality control systems that would impress modern factories. Before we dive into this world where time moved by church bells and success was measured in perfect rinds, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. And I want to hear from you in the comments. What surprised you most about medieval cheesemaking? Was it the techniques, the scale, or something else entirely? Let's get into it. The first light of dawn barely touches the stone walls of the Abbey when Brother Thomas pulls himself from his straw mattress. The bell for Lords won't ring for another hour, but the cows don't follow church schedules. In the dairy, 20 wooden vats wait like hungry mouths, each one capable of holding enough milk to feed a village. But these monks aren't just feeding themselves, they're feeding an entire economic system built on wheels of aging cheese. The morning milking brings in roughly 200 gallons of warm, foamy milk. That's enough to fill your bathtub 4 times over, and it all has to be processed before the sun climbs high enough to spoil it. No refrigeration, no preservatives, just the race against time that every dairy worker has faced for thousands of years. Brother Thomas has been doing this dance for 15 years, but today he's got company. Brother Marcus, a nervous novice who joined the Abbey just 3 months ago and still flinches every time a cow shifts her weight. The transformation starts the moment that warm milk meets the rennet, not the powdered stuff you might buy today, but actual calf rennet, extracted from young calves in a process that would make modern health inspectors reach for their clipboards. The monks knew something that took food scientists centuries to figure out. The enzymes in calf rennet create a different texture than anything else. The milk doesn't just curdle, it transforms into something with the perfect balance of moisture and firmness. Brother Thomas watches the milk like a hawk watching prey. After 30 minutes, he performs what looks like magic to the untrained eye. He slides his knife into the vat and lifts it slowly. If the curd breaks clean, meaning it splits apart without any milky liquid dripping from the cut, the milk has reached that perfect moment of transformation. Too early, and you'll get a mushy mess. Too late, and the curds become tough as leather. There's maybe a 5-minute window to get it right, and Brother Thomas has never missed it. The cutting process looks deceptively simple, but it requires the precision of a surgeon and the rhythm of a dancer. Long knives slice through the curd in parallel lines, first north to south, then east to west, creating a checkerboard pattern. Then comes the diagonal cuts, turning those neat squares into irregular chunks. The goal is pieces about the size of rice grains. Any bigger and they won't drain properly. Any smaller and you'll lose too much moisture. Brother Marcus fumbles with his knife, creating chunks that look more like pebbles than rice. Earning a patient shake of the head from his mentor, the stirring comes next, and this is where experience separates the novices from the masters. Too gentle, and the curds won't release their whey. Too aggressive, and you'll shatter them into useless fragments. Brother Thomas moves his wooden paddle in slow, deliberate circles, watching as the cloudy whey gradually clears and the curds firm up like tiny white pebbles. The process takes about an hour, and during that time, roughly 80% of the original milk volume will separate out as whey. Here's where things get really interesting from a numbers perspective. That 200 gallons of milk will yield approximately 20 pounds of cheese, a conversion rate that hasn't changed much in 800 years. But the whey isn't waste. Every drop gets channeled through wooden gutters to the pig troughs, where it becomes premium pig feed. The Abbey's pork operation depends on this daily delivery of protein-rich whey, creating a closed-loop system that would make modern sustainability experts weep with joy. The ladling process separates the skilled from the hopeful. Brother Thomas uses a wooden scoop to transfer curds from the vat to cloth-lined baskets, leaving as much whey behind as possible. Each scoop has to be perfect. Too much whey and the cheese will be soggy. Too little and you'll lose valuable curd. Brother Marcus manages to splash whey across the stone floor twice, creating puddles that will need to be scrubbed before they sour and stink up the entire dairy. The pressing stage reveals the true artistry of medieval cheese making. Each basket of curds gets wrapped in clean linen cloth that was boiled the night before and dried over the fire. The wrapped curds go into wooden hoops, circular molds that will give the final cheese its shape. But the real magic happens with the pressing system. Flat stones, each weighing about 50 pounds, get stacked on wooden boards that fit perfectly inside the hoops. Some wheels get 1 stone, others get 3, depending on the type of cheese being made and how much moisture needs to be expelled. The screw press is the Abbey's most sophisticated piece of technology, a wooden contraption that can apply consistent pressure for hours. Brother Thomas adjusts the screws with the care of a clockmaker, knowing that too much pressure too quickly will force out not just whey, but the fats that give cheese its rich texture. The first pressing lasts about 4 hours, with the screws tightened gradually as the whey runs out in steady streams. While the first batch of wheels presses, the monks start the entire process over again with fresh milk. A successful Abbey dairy produces multiple batches per day, with different wheels at various stages of the process. The timing has to be perfect. You can't let fresh milk sit while you're busy pressing yesterday's batch, and you can't rush the pressing to accommodate new milk. It's a juggling act that requires the precision of a master chef and the endurance of a marathon runner. The overnight brining process transforms pressed curds into something that can survive months of aging. Each wheel gets lowered into a stone trough filled with salt water so concentrated it would make your eyes water. The salt doesn't just add flavour, it draws out remaining moisture and creates an environment where harmful bacteria can't survive. The cheese wheels float like pale islands in this briny sea, slowly absorbing just enough salt to preserve them without overwhelming their delicate flavours. Brother Marcus learns to judge the brine strength by floating a fresh egg in it. If the egg bobs with about half its shell showing above water, the salt concentration is perfect. Too weak, and the cheese won't preserve properly. Too strong, and the final product will taste like it was made from seawater. This simple test, passed down through generations of cheesemakers, works better than any modern measuring device. The morning after brining brings the most delicate part of the entire process. Brother Thomas approaches the stone trough like a doctor examining patients, checking each wheel for signs of proper salt absorption. The rinds should feel firm but not hard, slightly tacky to the touch, but not sticky. A properly brined wheel will have absorbed just enough salt to create a protective barrier without penetrating too deeply into the interior. Brother Marcus watches intently as his mentor lifts each wheel, feeling for that perfect balance between preservation and palatability. Moving the wheels to the cellars requires the coordination of a military operation. The Abbey's cheese cellar sits 20 feet underground, where the temperature stays constant year-round at around 50 degrees. No thermometers needed. The monks know the cellar is ready when their breath no longer fogs in the cool air. The walls are thick limestone that naturally regulates humidity, creating an environment that modern cheesemakers would kill for. Each wheel gets carried down narrow stone steps on wooden boards, a process that claims its share of dropped wheels and bruised shins. The shelving system in the cellar represents centuries of trial and error. Ash wood shelves line the walls from floor to ceiling, each board spaced exactly the right distance apart to allow air circulation around every wheel. The wood choice isn't random. Ashwood contains natural compounds that inhibit mold growth while allowing the cheese to breathe. Pine would add unwanted flavours, oak would be too expensive, but ash provides the perfect neutral environment for aging cheese. Brother Marcus discovers that arranging wheels on shelves requires more skill than stacking firewood. Each wheel needs to sit perfectly flat, with enough space around it for air circulation, but not so much space that the cellar becomes inefficient. The bottom shelves hold the newest wheels, which need the most attention and turning. The top shelves house the oldest wheels, some of which have been aging for over a year and require only occasional inspection. The turning ritual happens every single day for the first week, then gradually becomes less frequent as the wheels develop their protective rinds. Brother Thomas shows Brother Marcus how to flip each wheel with a smooth, confident motion that prevents cracking or damage. A dropped wheel during turning can ruin months of careful work, creating cracks where unwanted bacteria can enter and spoil the entire cheese. The novice's first attempts are clumsy and hesitant, but gradually he develops the rhythm that marks an experienced cheesemaker. Recording the progress of each wheel requires a system more complex than any modern inventory database. The cellarer, Brother Benedict, carries a wax tablet and stylus, marking each wheel's location, age, and condition in symbols that would baffle outsiders. A cross means the wheel is ready for the guest house. 3 lines indicate it needs extra turning, and a circle with a dot shows premium wheels destined for trade with neighbouring monasteries. These cryptic markings represent the Abbey's most valuable assets, worth more than gold in many transactions. The infirmarian, Brother Paul, adds another layer of complexity to the cheese-making process. Certain wheels get special treatment with herbs and spices, carefully measured additions that transform basic cheese into medicine. Wheels destined for the infirmary receive precise amounts of thyme for respiratory ailments, sage for digestive problems, or fennel for nursing mothers in the village. Each herb requires different timing in the aging process, and Brother Paul guards his recipes more closely than state secrets. Quality control in the Abbey dairy would impress modern food safety inspectors. Every cloth gets boiled, after use, and dried completely before the next batch. The wooden vats receive daily scrubbing with coarse salt and scalding water, then get air-dried in the sun when weather permits. The stone floors get swept clean after each use and washed with water so hot it creates clouds of steam in the cool morning air. Brother Marcus learns that cleanliness isn't just about appearance. One contaminated batch can spoil weeks of work and waste precious milk that could have fed dozens of people. The economics of Abbey cheese making reveal why these monasteries became so wealthy and powerful. A single cow produces roughly 6 gallons of milk per day during peak season. That milk becomes about 1 pound of cheese, which can be stored for months or even years without spoiling. Compare this to fresh milk, which spoils in hours without refrigeration, and you understand why cheese became medieval Europe's most reliable protein storage system. The trade networks built around Abbey cheese stretch across entire kingdoms. Merchants arrive at the Abbey gates with wagons full of goods to exchange for wheels of aged cheese. A year-old wheel might buy a month's supply of wine, while a perfectly aged 2-year wheel could purchase enough grain to feed the entire monastery for a week. The monks don't just make cheese, they're running a sophisticated banking system where dairy products serve as currency. Brother Marcus gradually learns to read the subtle signs that separate exceptional cheese from merely good cheese. The rind should develop a golden colour with white patches of beneficial mould, but never the fuzzy green growth that indicates spoilage. A gentle press with the thumb should yield slightly, showing proper moisture content, but the cheese shouldn't feel soft or squishy. The aroma should be complex and earthy, never sharp or ammonia-like. The most challenging aspect of the entire process isn't the physical labour, it's the patience. Modern food production focuses on speed and efficiency, but Abbey cheesemaking celebrates the slow transformation that only time can create. Brother Thomas has wheels in the cellar that won't be ready to eat for another 18 months. That requires a faith in the future that few modern businesses could sustain, trusting that careful work today will pay dividends years from now. Seasonal variations add another layer of complexity to the cheese-making calendar. Spring milk, rich with the flavors of fresh grass, creates wheels with bright, tangy notes that develop into complex, nutty flavors over time. Summer milk, when cows graze on wildflowers and herbs, produces cheese with floral undertones that become more pronounced with age. Fall milk, as cows prepare for winter, yields rich, buttery wheels that age into something approaching perfection. The Abbey's cheese-making operation runs on a schedule more precise than any modern factory. The first milking begins before dawn, processing starts immediately, pressing follows a rigid timeline, brining happens overnight, and cellar work fills the afternoon hours. Every step depends on the previous one, creating a chain of activities that can't be rushed or delayed without consequences rippling through the entire operation. Brother Marcus begins to understand that he's not just learning to make cheese. He's joining a tradition that connects him to countless generations of dairy workers who perfected these techniques through centuries of careful observation and gradual improvement. The weight of tradition settles on Brother Marcus's shoulders like the Abbey's heavy stone walls. Each morning brings new lessons that can't be found in any manuscript or prayer book. You learn to read cheese the way other monks read scripture, with your hands, your nose, and an intuition that develops only through countless hours of patient observation. The testing ritual becomes second nature after weeks of practice. Brother Thomas teaches him to tap each wheel with his knuckles, listening for the hollow sound that indicates proper air pockets versus the dull thud that suggests too much moisture. A wheel that sounds wrong gets moved to a different part of the cellar, where the air circulation might correct the problem. Some wheels never recover, becoming food for the monastery's pigs rather than currency for trade. The most valuable skill Brother Marcus develops is learning to predict problems before they happen. A slight discoloration on the rind might indicate the beginning of unwanted mold growth. A wheel that feels too soft during turning could develop cracks within days. The difference between catching these issues early and letting them develop can mean the difference between a wheel worth a month's wages and one fit only for animal feed. Winter brings its own challenges to the cheese-making operation. Cows produce less milk when confined to barns and fed dried hay instead of fresh grass. The reduced milk supply means fewer wheels, but also means each wheel becomes more precious. The cold also affects the aging process. Wheels develop their rinds more slowly in winter, requiring different timing for the turning schedule. Brother Thomas adjusts the cellar routine based on the season, knowledge that took him years to acquire through trial and error. The monastery's reputation spreads far beyond the local village. Traveling merchants speak of the Abbey's cheese in markets hundreds of miles away. Some wheels carry carved marks identifying their origin, a primitive form of branding that guarantees quality to distant buyers. A wheel bearing the Abbey's mark commands premium prices because everyone knows the monks' rigorous standards and time-tested methods. Brother Marcus discovers that different customers require different types of wheels. The local lord prefers younger cheeses with milder flavors, while merchants heading to distant markets want fully aged wheels that can survive long journeys. The guest house serves cheese to visiting dignitaries, requiring wheels with perfect appearance and complex flavors that reflect well on the Abbey's hospitality. Each wheel gets assigned its destination based on how it develops during the aging process. The relationship between the cheesemakers and the rest of the monastery creates its own complex dynamics. The kitchen brothers depend on regular supplies of fresh cheese for daily meals, while the treasurer tracks the value of aging wheels like a banker monitoring investments. The abbot himself takes personal interest in the cheese operation, understanding that dairy profits help fund everything from manuscript copying to church repairs. Quality control extends beyond just the cheese itself to every tool and surface in the dairy. The wooden paddles get scraped smooth regularly to prevent bacteria from hiding in rough spots. The cloth wrapping gets replaced at the first sign of wear, since damaged fabric can leave impressions on the cheese rind that create weak spots for contamination. Even the stone floors receive attention, with loose mortar repaired immediately to prevent cracks where moisture might collect and breed problems. The learning curve for new cheesemakers proves steeper than Brother Marcus initially expected. After 6 months of daily work, he still occasionally misjudges the timing for cutting curds or applies uneven pressure during pressing. Brother Thomas reminds him that becoming truly skilled takes years, not months. Some brothers never master the subtle aspects of cheesemaking, remaining helpers rather than leaders in the dairy operation. The economic impact of successful cheesemaking ripples through the entire region. Local farmers bring their best milk cows to the Abbey, knowing that steady customers mean reliable income. The Abbey's demand for salt creates business for distant salt mines, while their need for wooden hoops supports local coopers. The cheese trade creates a network of economic relationships that extends far beyond the monastery walls. Seasonal celebrations often revolve around the cheese-making calendar. The first wheels of spring milk get blessed by the abbot before going into the cellar. Harvest festivals feature displays of the year's finest aged wheels, with special ceremonies for wheels that achieved exceptional quality. These celebrations reinforce the connection between the monastery's spiritual mission and its practical work feeding the community. The monastery's library contains detailed records of successful batches, failed experiments, and gradual improvements to techniques. Brother Benedict, the record keeper, notes which combinations of milk quality, weather conditions, and aging environments produce the best results. These records become invaluable guides for future cheesemakers, creating an institutional memory that spans generations of monks. Storage management in the cellars requires constant attention and careful planning. Wheels at different stages of aging need different amounts of space and care. New wheels require daily attention, while mature wheels need only weekly inspection. The most valuable wheels, aged for 2 years or more, get stored in the deepest part of the cellar, where temperature and humidity remain most stable. A single wheel aged for 3 years might trade for enough grain to feed the entire monastery for a month. The physical demands of cheesemaking leave their mark on every brother who works in the dairy. Lifting heavy stones during pressing builds impressive arm strength, while hours of stirring curds develop the kind of endurance usually seen in blacksmiths. The constant lifting and moving of wheels creates men who can work all day without tiring, though the toll shows in their calloused hands and aching backs. Brother Marcus begins to understand that he's become part of something larger than just food production. The cheese-making operation connects the monastery to the wider world through trade relationships, provides economic stability for the religious community, and creates products that can feed people for months after the cows stop giving milk. The daily routine of milk, salt, and patient waiting transforms simple ingredients into the foundation of medieval commerce. The mastery he's developing goes beyond technical skills to include an almost mystical understanding of how living processes work. Cheese making requires reading the subtle signs of bacterial activity, moisture migration, and chemical changes that happen too slowly for direct observation. Success depends on intuition, developed through years of careful attention to details that outsiders would never notice. The monastery's cheese-making operation represents one of medieval Europe's most sophisticated food processing systems, combining centuries of accumulated knowledge with daily practical application. Every wheel that emerges from the cellars carries the weight of tradition, the skill of experienced hands, and the patience required to transform perishable milk into something that can outlast the seasons. As spring arrives and the grass grows thick with morning dew, the entire rhythm of the dairy operation shifts like clockwork. The cows produce richer milk, thick with butterfat that creates wheels with deeper flavors and better aging potential. Brother Marcus notices the difference immediately. The curds form more quickly, the whey runs clearer, and the finished wheels have a golden tint that speaks of quality even before they enter the cellars. The seasonal changeover brings new challenges that test every skill Brother Marcus has developed over the winter months. Spring milk requires different timing for everything from cutting curds to pressing schedules. What worked perfectly in January creates disaster in April, and Brother Thomas watches with amusement as his student learns this lesson the hard way. 3 wheels from Marcus's first spring batch develop cracks during pressing, teaching him that experience with one season doesn't automatically translate to mastery of another. The Abbey's reputation reaches its peak during the spring cheese-making season. Merchants arrive weekly, sometimes daily, hoping to secure contracts for wheels that won't be ready for months. The best wheels from previous springs now command prices that make the treasurer smile during his evening prayers. One perfectly aged wheel from 2 springs ago trades for enough silver to buy 3 new milk cows, creating a cycle of expansion that strengthens the monastery's economic foundation year after year. The complexity of managing inventory across multiple seasons challenges even Brother Benedict's meticulous record-keeping system. His wax tablets now carry symbols indicating not just age and quality, but the specific season when each wheel began its journey. Spring wheels get marked with a small leaf, summer wheels with a sun symbol, and so on. This seasonal tracking becomes crucial when merchants request specific flavor profiles that only develop from milk produced during certain times of year. Brother Marcus discovers that the most valuable skill isn't just making good cheese, it's predicting which wheels will become exceptional. Some wheels show promise from the moment they're pressed, developing the perfect balance of moisture and firmness that indicates future greatness. Others start poorly, but gradually improve during aging, surprising everyone when they emerge from the cellars as premium products. Learning to spot these patterns takes years of observation and more than a little luck. So here we are, 800 years later, and those medieval monks figured out something we're still chasing today: how to turn the simplest ingredients into something extraordinary through nothing but patience and skill. Brother Marcus might have fumbled his first attempts at cutting curds, but he was learning techniques that would outlast kingdoms and empires. Every time you bite into a piece of aged cheese, you're tasting centuries of wisdom passed down through calloused hands in stone cellars. Those Abbey wheels didn't just feed people, they built the foundation of everything we know about preserving food and creating flavors that get better with time.